Miranda rights. You always hear you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to remain silent, right? That's like a thing you kind of, everybody sort of knows it by heart from television and movies. And yet, when the prosecution was making their opening case, their opening remarks, they actually were accusing Rittenhouse of guilt because he had been silent, which is weird. That's a really weird accusation. But that's what they did. And this is what made the judge so incredibly angry. Listen to this. This is audio soundbite 22. And the judge goes off on this prosecutor over this. Listen, this is yesterday.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, I'll leave it at that.
And the left is mad at this judge, by the way, because he has an American flag tie on today, apparently. I don't know what that's supposed to, they're all mad. That's a huge thing. You have the right to remain silent. I've said this earlier, but it's so important. The government, it should be incredibly difficult for them to deprive you of a right or your liberty, especially over allegations that have not yet been proven. And this idea that somehow, I thought this was actually really interesting. I was reading a couple of good pieces about this morning. How, like for instance, remember this was 2 weeks ago? It was a Washington Post story, and it got into how the judge did not allow prosecution to refer to Groskowitz, Rosenbaum, and Zeminski as victims in this case because they were at a riot and they were engaged. They were doing riot stuff, right? And the left got so upset over this. They were prohibiting a conclusive this conclusive term, and the left was saying, well, the point of the trial is to establish whether or not they're victims. No, that's not the point of the trial, you ever-loving moron. The point of the trial is to determine whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse was was it self-defense or was it murder? That's the point of the trial. He's got murder charges pending. But what was weird to see are people who are very hyper left, people who used to object to things like warrantless searches. And you can disagree with me on stop and frisk all day long, but I think stop and frisk I have always been against Terry stops. I don't like them. I understand people are like, oh, well, it helps crime. You know what else helps crime? Having a good family and good virtue. That also stops crime. Having people around you that are going to help you not. Why is it the government? So I have to give up? I have to be deprived of a right because someone else didn't do their job? Step off. That's such a big government position. I've had people say, well, that's a libertarian. No, it's not. It's a consistent conservative principle. But it's really weird to see so many people on the left become major proponents and advocates for very, very, very aggressive prosecutions. Have you noticed this? I mean, there are people who wanted, like, for instance, January 6th, I have no problem in holding accountable people who committed violence or vandalism or destruction of property, anything. Like, I don't have a problem with that. That's where I think we are consistent. But what I do have a problem with is like this indefinite holding period for people who committed misdemeanors or people who committed misdemeanors and they're trying to find some way to trump it up to some kind of felony charge. I think there are too many felonies too. It's just weird. It's weird. And the left is they become a huge proponent of this. And I don't understand that because I thought that they previously were against all of this stuff, right? Didn't they used to be against things like the Patriot Act? Didn't they used to be against super aggressive, politically motivated prosecutions? I mean, for instance, this trial. I really agree with my friend Andrew Branca, and one of the things he said is that, probable cause. He had absolute probable cause to defend himself. It's perfectly legally explainable. I just don't think that there's any way in any kind of fair world, there's no reason why this case should have progressed to the point where it's a trial like this, and you have a really, really bad, horrible prosecutor. This guy apparently ran for DA and failed. He wants to run again. The prosecutor in this case. But there is something to see people who are on the left be huge fans of denying bail and politically motivated progressive prosecutions. There's something very troubling about that. I'm going to include something about that in the piece that I'm working up about this. And when I look at the prosecution's arguments, and I have like a collection of videos and notes that I've been keeping about this. Thomas Binger is the lead prosecutor. And basically his argument is that, well, and this is what I've seen from a lot of legacy press, what's bad isn't the rioting, and it's not the adult men who are all criminals. And 2 of them were felons, tried to attack kids and burn down businesses, etc. It's just bad that he defended himself, that a 17-year-old defended himself against them.